I sat in the bathroom for 5 hours, but the ghostly smell still haunts me. At first I tried rinsing it off under a powerful hot shower, ignoring the slight burns. Then, making sure I was clean, I poured out the entire tube left over from the last landlady of the apartment. Some kind of foam, roses, flowers, caramel. It says so on the bottle, but I don't smell it. I was just going to make a doctor's appointment. After what happened, you obviously can't do without the help of a specialist, just like you can't do without a half a liter. But before I left, with my shoes on, I looked out the window. Clouds were gathering, black and white, layered, crawling toward the ground, and so I set my priorities. As soon as I connected to the internet, Messenger blinked with a new notification. There's no way to reach you. Really? I must have forgotten to charge my phone. So, buddy, when are you coming to the harvest? It's Gray, my childhood friend. He recently got married and, cherishing the dream of a large family, got rid of the living quarters in a concrete box, and went to live in the country. I'm sorry, Sergey, but I'll pass. My fingers are shaking. I think about it a little bit, and then I add, those things you have already taken away, let them lie there for now. You're ruining our plans, buddy, and a sad smiley face at the end. Allergies. The doctors are putting me in the hospital tomorrow for the blooming period. All right, buddy, get well soon. Thanking my companion, I went into invisible mode. I erased all the contact information from my profile, and then I took the hell out of my email account. Now I could make a doctor's appointment. After that I have to buy train tickets. Now, I think there's no way around the backstory. As I said, Gray recently built himself a mansion in the country, and as recently as this weekend, we raced a huge company at a housewarming party. That's right, from Friday night and whizzed off. And there was so much to see. Just a couple of hours from the city, and you have a 2-story house with a veranda, and a sauna as black, a gazebo for kebabs. Actually, we ate shish kebabs with it, completely forgetting about the healthy food until Monday. We could do it on such an occasion, since the neighbors hadn't moved in yet. The co-op seemed either relatively new or already abandoned, but decent in appearance, the music from the car, so everything would be like people. We were having fun, beer was flowing. Tay, overrated, or Serkunya did his best. His belly protrudes under his t-shirt. Our friend brought his dog. He's so playful. And the view of the river. We have forest in the back, a natural wall, protection. In the front we have silvery silks of water. So sunny, birds are singing. Night birds call in the morning, just after sunrise. Wonderful place, even surprising that there is no one. Friday night flew by unnoticed. Well, at first glance, on the second floor, where we were checked in, it was quiet and peaceful, and while we were smoking in the guest room, it was uncomfortable to sit in front of the window. I also took a note to bring them new curtains next weekend. This chintz dinosaur, which has seen the Union, has lost more than one battle to moths. Here and there the night was peeking our company through holes of various diameters. Also, the curtains didn't fit together, and that slit was chilling to the point of shivers. It was like someone was touching me with an icy hand between my lungs. It's like someone was touching my lungs with an icy hand. It lifted with tenacious fingers, squeezed my windpipe, and I stared into the darkness. I could hear voices as I walked downwind, from the side of the woods. I even tried to look hard, but it was so dark that even the moonlight didn't help. Maybe somebody came while we were playing Twister. Don't be so creepy, Gray said indignantly as he filled my glass. I said no, because I didn't want to go out in the night and walk to that creepy structure. Everything in this precinct was normal and modern, except for the goddamn restroom. The stone path up to it seemed like a mockery. Either they did not have enough money, or the traditions were too strong, but the triangular building was the cause for jokes. And, classic of the genre, a hole in the floor, a hole in the floor, just like in the toilets of our grandmothers in the village. I don't know about you, but I've always been terrified of these holes. You're sitting down, and there's a hand, bam, it grabs you by the balls, or you get up, take a quick glance, and there's a pale face, like in a Japanese horror movie, and your eyes are goggling, the door won't open, and you'll be dragged into a hole, and then there's the floor cracking. I personally saw that the nails weren't holding properly. It was good that no one had children. A child could kick a board, and then what would they write on the tombstone? But Sergey excused himself. It was not mine. It was left by the old tenants. I saved money for your treats. I decided to rebuild the house with my pay. And you. That's how the first night went. On the second, the whispering got louder. If only one of them had believed me and stopped waving off. It's just the noise of the rain. Don't worry, things might have turned out differently. Or it wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know anything. I want to wake up and not smell it anymore. It was pouring like a bucket. We were going to watch the sunset. Z brought her camera to take nice pictures. Over the river is the best place to look. The ripples would turn scarlet. The water would light up as night pushed the sun over the horizon. Not long after the sun had crept up to the city, clouds came from the forest. Low, black and white, like from old movies. It started raining. The rain beat on the roof. It rang, droplets flying, nailing the foliage. The short walk from the gazebo to the house soaked us all through, so we huddled against the warmth of the fireplace while something gawked at us from a slit in the curtains. I didn't share my impressions this time, just sat back. The very thing, throwing the cards over Kay, the life of joy as she undressed. But even so, I remembered to look up from the fan of cards, and several times I thought I saw something moving outside the window. As Sergei had said, only a madman would take a piss in such bad weather. Yes, even though I am insane, I don't regret my choice one bit, and pissing in a bucket in the hall. You know, it smells like junior camp, nights with scary stories, when the moon shines rusty red, and the old boat swings by itself. Anyway, strange thoughts were what pushed me outside. The sky was crumbling and whipping, and I stood there, squinting into its impenetrable blackness. It was so dark, and if it hadn't been for the noise of the downpour, I would have thought of total isolation. That's when I tensed a little. The rest of the sounds of nature were silent. A chill ran down my spine, but not the kind that dripped under my soaked clothes, but another, special one. Before I finally burst into the latrine, I went to the window, peering into a narrow strip of bright life. Neither Kay nor me can be seen from this angle, only part of the room. I wondered if that's why Z often huddles so much, as if from the cold. I reached the toilet, lighting the way with the screen of my waterproof travel phone. The new models have bright screens, so I got used to them that I did not turn on the light beforehand, and I was sitting in the dark, reading my book, doing things, when I heard it whispered again. Not the rain, but a real whisper. You can hear it better without music. And then there were scraps of something that sounded like words, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. I started to listen. I listened so hard that, chug, 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 slap, chug, someone's rustling in the wet grass. More than one. You know that thing where you feel the movement on your skin, don't you? So do I. I shined the light on the door and almost shit myself, but I went and put the screen off immediately. Who locks themselves in a village shithole in the middle of the night? I didn't, and that sinful latch is a fiery brand under my eyelids. And it pulses with my heartbeat. I forgot how to breathe, stared into the darkness, afraid of the beast that might come out of the woods, accidentally scraping open the door. And here's a snack, sprats in a jar. For Christ's sake, not the most pleasant feeling. You know, I got up, reached for the latch. That's when something kicked into the building. From behind, there was a thud, and someone noisily sucked in air, letting out a death rattle. As I stood there, I froze, and it froze, listening, sniffing, chomping at the dirt. And so we stood there, testing each other's patience, until those whisperings revealed themselves again. My brain immediately commanded, get lost, and then, I'm ashamed to tell you, but I must share, in case you find yourself in a similar situation. I do not know how I understood it. They say that in extreme situations my brain works differently, but I managed to undo the nails, and, putting them in my pocket, just in case, to dive under the boards. It's one thing to smell a cesspool when you're above a hole, and another to be in the thick of it. The thick, viscous stench sobered me up. Imagine that's when I realized what an idiot I would look to my friends. Failed in the hole. I thought to myself, so you owe me a horse, Gray, and then he would pay his respects, but he would make fun of me for a long time, calling me a speleologist. Yes, that's exactly what Sergei would have done. I was about to make my way back out, when suddenly something hit the structure again, this time in the door, and all my courage deflated in an untied balloon, fell straight to the bottom of the pit. I followed her example and, holding my breath, crouched down a bit. That's when the realization that there was too much crap piled up hit me on the head, left over from the old tenants. It flashed in my head, making me wonder, so many houses around here, and all empty. It's strange, but if the animals were walking around, would it make the news? There was another bang on the door, and then it opened, with the speed of a paratrooper on a mission, I ducked deeper into the disgusting soft shelter, managing to hear sounds that I was sure would haunt me for many more dreams in a row. Breathing, hoarse and howling. I managed to imagine the red-hot air escaping, filling the small room with a hellish stench. Whatever it was now sticking its snout in the doorway and breathing greedily, trying to recognize my scent. No, I can't guarantee that it was, but that's what my imagination conjured up. I managed to sit like this until the door closed. I woke up. I was afraid to breathe. It was disgusting. I wanted to vomit on my insides as the cold shit filled all the holes in my face. The air was liquid and tasted disgusting, but I was barely paying attention to it all. For just a second I even thought I was imagining it all from banging my head. But then, in the tradition of all horror movies, there was a scream. First Kay, and then the others. They were screaming in horror, tearing their vocal cords, and it was frightening, but it got scarier when the screams began to subside. The rumbling coming from the owls was mixed with some very eerie noises. Maybe it was my imagination, but I'm sure I heard other people's bones crunching. It went on for hours, and the whole time I sat in the cesspool, hucking my knees and shaking with silent sobs. What was peeking into the toilet came with death, and I was very lucky it didn't smell me, because it reeked on the basement floor like a mother. In the time I sat here, my nerves had time to get in order. Of course, it was hard to call what was happening to me order, but the ability to think straight had returned, and with it, my fears about the country toilets. So I crammed myself into a corner, trying not to flounder or open my eyes. The sensation of an overly clean, dead Japanese woman sitting across from me hugged me with cold, bony arms, tickling my chest. I was sure that if I poked around in that brown mass for a while, I'd find someone's rough skull, or that the mysterious hand without end was about to crawl out of the wall to find my neck. But I was much scarier thinking that the very thing would come back, and this time it would figure out to stick its face in the hole. I don't know how I didn't lose my mind before morning. In fact, I'm not sure I can still think straight. As I type this, I reread each line several times, looking for logical inconsistencies or the slightest hint that I'm crazy. Then everything would be much easier. I will continue. However, at some point, I felt this. Everything around me was just different. My consciousness had been freed from the clutches of a multi-ton press. You know, the birds were singing. I realized that the rain that had isolated us from the rest of the world was gone. The sky wasn't black and white. Indeed, the sunlight was breaking through the cracks. I could see out of the hole above my head, but I didn't want to get out of the cabin. I wrapped myself in the illusion of safety like a blanket, sensing the possibility of monsters attacking from under the bed, monsters that were already gone. So, after a few minutes of deliberation, this choice seemed vital to me. After all, I got out of the jolt, not a dead schoolgirl, but scary, too. Yes, so far I was still the scariest object within a few kilometers. You see, everything here was so cheerful and ordinary that I would never have believed my own story if I had heard it from the outside. As I walked toward the living quarters, I couldn't help noticing this horrible smacking. There was a lot of slop on my boots, and as I looked back, I suddenly realized that there were no traces of my evening footprints left on the stone path. Even if they had been, the rain had washed everything away. The rain had helped me hide, and the unlocked door also played into my hands, for I didn't give them a chance to assume that someone had been in the bathroom. But now, in the light of the gentle sunlight, the night's adventure seemed only white hot, and I, embarrassed, had already begun to make up a story about how I fell into the toilet and passed out until the morning, when suddenly I noticed the silence. Well, you know, outside the lodge it was fine. There was nothing coming out of there, and that wasn't surprising, because there was no one inside. I looked around every inch, every closet and hiding place. Stuff was in its place, as if the house had been prepared for display for sale. It was as if those who had been resting here had just packed up and left on the fire alarm, leaving everything in its place. Was I scared? I don't remember. I just thought I needed to get out of here before the rain started again. In the distance, it was starting to drizzle over the woods. I don't know if it really had anything to do with what was going on, but for some reason I didn't want to get caught in the drizzle. So I rushed to the river and dove in as I was, just with my clothes on. It took a long time to wash up. The smell was pungent. It seemed to smell all over me. I still haven't got it out. I guess I'm just psychotic. I even caught a cold in there while I was swimming. But I had to clean myself up if I hoped to get out of here. I did the right thing. The train took me for a bum, especially since I had no money. It was a miracle that my phone had survived. It still lived up to its advertisement, and I sold it to the conductor. But I threw the SIM card out the window. I told him that I had gotten lost in the woods with my friends, that I had been wandering through the swamps for days. I'm not sure that they were there, but it was unlikely that the truthfulness mattered at the time, so she even gave me hot tea to drink. It was harder to get around in the city. You wouldn't believe it. The homeless people took me for one of their own. They patted me down for fair change, so when I got home, I went straight to the bathroom. And then Sergey wrote. That's how I started the story. You can call me superstitious, but I left my documents at home 20 times in the cross because I took the electric train. To be on the safe side, I left my doctor's appointment, and then I went to a veto. When in a hurry to sell an apartment in a big city, realtors quickly bite at low prices. The deposit has already been deposited on the card. I'll give them the keys tomorrow, and I'm off to the train station. This is very stupid. I know. Maybe the squirrel really came straight to the toilet. But one thing I'm sure of, in addition to me today posted another ad. Yes, for the sale of that very lot. And the pictures are straight out of the rain. I took a closer look. Yes, the tracks were washed out again. So the phantom toilet walker has an alibi. You know, I don't believe it was Gray who suddenly decided to sell the house. And I know he wasn't the one texting me from his account. So I don't feel anything about the rush to escape. Not even a pang of greed. I don't know what happened there, but I'm afraid it will affect everyone on his contact list. It's a good thing a lot of people are sitting on the city forum. I really ask you to think a few times before heading out to W Township, even if it's all an accident or just the ramblings of an overindulged man. I don't want you risking yourself. And remember, the village latrine is a great way to mask odors.